I moved to the farm a few days ago, looking for a quiet place to escape the city noise. I was a freelance photographer, and I thought the rustic charm of rural life would inspire me. The farm was at the end of a long, bumpy road. The peeling paint and broken windows gave the place a spooky feel, but that made me want to explore more. I was sure I could capture some amazing photos here. On my second night, I woke up to a loud crowing. It surprised me. I glanced at my watch. It was midnight, not dawn. My heart raced at the weirdness of it. Maybe I was dreaming. I tried to shake it off and went back to sleep, but I felt a strange pull to look outside. The next night, the crowing started again. It was louder, more desperate. I felt uneasy and decided to find out what was going on. I climbed out of bed and walked down the creaky floorboards towards the window. When I peered outside, I saw feathers scattered on the ground below. They were everywhere. I thought that was odd. There were no chickens around, at least not that I could see. As the nights rolled on, the crowing continued, with those strange feathers appearing each time. I noticed dark markings in the dirt leading towards the barn. The sight made my stomach twist. I thought I could see a shadow moving in the corner of my eye, but each time I turned, nothing was there. I tried to convince myself it was just my overactive imagination, but deep down, I sensed something was off. On one particularly loud night, I stood in the kitchen, heart pounding. The crowing felt endless, mixed with something that sounded like whispers that drifted through the tall grass outside. A chill ran down my spine. I thought about leaving or calling a friend, but I couldn't shake the need to know what was happening. Suddenly there it was, the rooster. It stood under the porch light, staring right at me. I wanted to step closer to it, but my feet felt glued to the floor. "What do you want?" I asked out loud, unsure if I should even be talking to a bird. The cold air enveloped me. I looked back and forth between it and my decision to move closer. Then the crowing stopped. The silence felt heavy as I stood frozen in place. I didn't know what was different, but I felt that it was. It was almost as if something in the air shifted. Finally, I gathered the courage to move to the door. As I opened it, I saw the feathers were now forming a clear line, leading towards the barn. That's when I noticed something else, a ragged chain hanging from the barn door. There was a faint engraving on it. With shaky hands, I wiped away the dirt, revealing the letters. "Beware, the price of his call." That's when I knew I wasn't just dealing with a strange bird. I realized I had stumbled into something much darker, something I could hardly understand. I stepped out onto the porch, the cool night air wrapping around me like a shroud. The feathers glimmered under the dim light, leading me toward the barn. A knot tightened in my stomach as I took a step forward, feeling a surge of dread wash over me. What was I getting into? As I reached the barn, I hesitated. The chain swung lightly in the breeze, the engraving whispering warnings I didn't fully comprehend. I could hear the wind rustling the grass, mingled with distant echoing cries. What price was I supposed to pay? Taking a deep breath, I pushed the barn door open. It creaked ominously, revealing a dark, musty interior. I pulled out my phone, turning on the flashlight. The beam cut through the darkness, illuminating old tools and forgotten crates. That's when I saw something shift in the corner. A movement caught my eye, just a flash of black. My heart thumped loudly in my chest, but I forced myself to investigate. I stepped further inside, the floorboards groaning beneath my weight. There, in the shadows, I noticed an old crate that looked out of place. It was tucked far back, nearly hidden. Curiosity wrestled with panic as I approached it. Kneeling down, I brushed away cobwebs, revealing more engravings on the sides of the crate. Symbols I didn't recognize. They seemed to pulse with energy, almost alive under my touch. I felt like I was trespassing on secrets I wasn't meant to find. Suddenly, I heard the crowing again. It echoed louder this time, close and insistent, sending prickles down my spine. The rooster. It was back. I turned my head, heart racing, and saw it standing just outside the door. Its eyes were fixed on me, almost as if beckoning. "What do you want?" I whispered, half expecting it to answer. Instead, the creature took a step toward me, and I felt a weight in the air, like a storm brewing. The silence was suffocating, broken only by the crowing that now felt like an incantation. The cymbals on the crate hummed softly, echoing that strange call. I couldn't ignore the urge to open the crate. With trembling hands, I grabbed the lid and pulled. It resisted for a moment before coming loose with a loud scrape. My stomach dropped as I lifted it, revealing a thick, dusty book inside. The cover was cracked and faded, but what caught my attention were the drawings inside. Pages filled with bizarre images, chickens transformed into grotesque figures, rituals and dark chants. The line, "The price of his call," echoed in my head. Was this somehow connected to the rooster? Before I could think any further, I heard a loud thud behind me. I turned, my breath catching in my throat. The barn door slammed shut. Darkness enveloped me and the crowing turned frantic. I felt trapped. Panic clawed its way up my throat. "What price?" I cried out into the blackness, my voice trembling. I had to find a way out. Then, from the depths of the shadows, I heard a voice whisper back, just barely audible over the crowing chaos. "You must choose." I didn't know what that meant, but I felt the dread settle in deeper. The room felt smaller. I had to escape. I swiveled around, heart pounding, scanning the dark corners of the barn. The voice had come from nowhere, sending chills down my spine. There was no one here but me and the relentless crowing of the rooster outside, echoing as though it was mocking my fear. "Choose what?" I choked out, my voice barely above a whisper. The darkness seemed to respond with a heavy silence, pressing in on me, and I took a step back, bumping into the crate. The book trembled gently with the impact, as if urging me to look through its pages again. I pocketed my phone, hoping the light would steady my nerves. I forced myself to open the book once more. The images danced before my eyes, as if they were alive, a figure surrounded by roosters, skeletal hands cradling their necks as they transformed into something sinister. I could feel the weight of their eyes, judging, waiting. "Do I have to summon something?" I whispered to the pages, desperate for an answer. I flipped through more illustrations, pausing on a page that detailed an intricate circle, drawn with symbols that mirrored the ones on the crate. I traced one with my finger, feeling an odd warmth beneath my touch. The crowing erupted again, shrill and urgent. A shadow flickered at the periphery of my vision, but when I turned, nothing was there. Anxiety gnawed at me. I couldn't stay in this barn any longer. I needed to escape, to get some air. Before I could think of a coherent plan, the rooster's call shifted. It wasn't just a sound now. It felt like a command, insistent and demanding. I felt compelled to follow it. My instincts screamed to run, yet my feet remained glued to the floor. "Just tell me what you want," I shouted. But the only reply was the increasingly frantic crowing, somehow both familiar and foreign. I closed the book with trembling hands, shoving it back into the crate. I stumbled toward the door, but it wouldn't budge. It was like an invisible force held it shut. "Let me out!" I yelled, banging against the door with my palms. The noise intensified outside, the rooster now joined by the flutter of wings. I felt claustrophobic, the walls seeming to close in. The energy in the room shifted, and I sensed something dark stirring in the shadows, something watching. Suddenly I remembered the symbols on the crate. They were a warning, I realized, or a promise of something. A price to pay. But what? The breath caught in my throat as I sensed movement behind me. I spun around, ready to confront whatever was lurking. My flashlight beam landed on a new shape, a tall, shadowy figure with a long beak-like mask. It loomed there, silent as the void, regarding me with eyes that reflected the eerie light. "Choose," it commanded, its voice deep and resonant, drowning out the frantic cries of the rooster outside. My heart raced. I had no idea what I was choosing, but I realized I was out of time. Then, as I swallowed hard, a thought hit me. It was no longer just about leaving the barn. This choice could change everything. I stood frozen, the shadowy figure still looming before me. The flashlight's glow flickered, casting eerie shadows on the old wooden barn walls. My heart thudded in my chest. "What do you want me to choose?" I stammered, my voice trembling. Its beak-like mask didn't move, but I felt the pressure of its gaze, cold and penetrating. The frantic crowing of the rooster outside grew louder, like an alarm in the silence. It was as if my fear was feeding this creature, feeding the shadow. I couldn't breathe. I took a cautious step back, my heel catching on the crate. I quickly glanced at the book inside it. Something pulled at me. An answer, maybe, or a clue. But I didn't want to take my eyes off the figure. What if I looked away and it vanished? "What do you want?" I repeated, louder this time, trying to summon courage. The chant echoed in the barn, swallowed by the dark corners. The figure didn't respond, but the crowing outside turned frantic, as though urging me. Then I remembered the intricate circle from the book. I could choose something. Did it mean I had to summon whatever that figure was? Instinctively, panic surged within me. What if I couldn't control what came next? The figure stepped closer and instinct kicked in. I bolted for the door again, slamming my shoulder against it. It still wouldn't give. But then, an idea struck. I grasped the crate. It felt solid beneath my fingertips, its edges rough against my skin. If it was a barrier for something, maybe it could hold the figure back. I glanced back. The mask-wearing shadow stood still, but it felt like a coiled spring ready to spring forward. My heart raced. "You want a choice? What if I choose to ignore you?" I shouted, desperation creeping into my tone. A gust of wind whipped through the barn then, rattling the windows and sending dust swirling into the light. It felt like the air had shifted, a warning sent my way. "Choose." The shadow's voice rang through the chaos, deep and echoing. Choose to awaken or choose to be bound. Confusion washed over me. What did that even mean? I could feel the energy in the barn change again, more intense now. My choice could either set something free or imprison me. Swallowing hard, I finally turned back to the book. I needed to know what I was summoning. As I opened it, the pages flipped wildly, settling on a vivid illustration of a rooster, a stunning golden bird, its feathers glinting in a radiant light. Below it, a line of text read, "To summon the protector, give your heart, your fear, or your freedom." My heart raced. "What?" I whispered, scanning the text again. It felt like a riddle, one that held my fate in its grasp. "What do you mean?" The figure shifted, the beak now inches from my face. "Your heart, your fear, or your freedom. Choose." In that moment, with the creature mere inches away, I understood the weight of the decision I had to make. Just then, the floor creaked beneath me, and the ground seemed to shudder, a new presence emerging from the shadows. I felt the cold grip of dread, the barn filled with anticipation. I had to choose now. But just as I raised my hand to point at the page, the lights flickered violently, and everything went dark. The darkness was suffocating. I blinked, hoping to adjust to the absence of light, but it seemed to swallow every sound, every breath. My pulse quickened, a primal response to the unknown. I stumbled backward, my fingers brushing against the rough wood of the barn, trying to orient myself. "Choose," the voice echoed, now nearer, as if the figure had not moved an inch. I felt trapped. I couldn't even see my own hands in front of me. Panic clawed at my throat. Then a faint glimmer appeared. A flicker of light, weak at first, but growing brighter. It emerged from the book, illuminating the pages. My heart raced. I had to see. Was it still open to the same illustration? I crouched down, straining to focus on the pages, feeling the creeping brush of the figure's presence behind me. As I peered at the book, the golden rooster was still there, but beneath it was a new message that hadn't been there before. To summon the protector, first face your shadow. What does that even mean? I whispered, my voice trembling. The light from the book pulsed softly, synchronizing with the rhythm of my heart. If this was the answer, it felt more like a warning than help. Suddenly, I heard a cracking sound behind me, and my blood ran cold. Something was moving in the darkness. I turned, squinting but unable to see anything. Fear squeezed my chest, but I stood my ground. Face my shadow, I breathed. What does that mean? As if in response, the figure shifted, making a low, guttural sound that sent shivers down my spine. The air felt charged, like an impending storm. I knew whatever was about to happen wasn't going to be easy. I remembered the choices, my heart, my fear, or my freedom. Did it mean I had to confront what I was most afraid of? But I couldn't stay paralyzed. I had to make a decision. Fine, I called out, fresh determination filling my voice. I choose to face my fear. The words echoed off the barn walls like a challenge thrown into the void. The light from the book intensified, bathing the barn in a golden glow that felt oddly warm against my skin. I squinted against it, feeling a rush of energy fill the space, but the figure remained unchanged. You must be ready, it warned. A strange sound arose, neither a whisper nor a roar. It surged through the barn, vibrating the wooden structure around me. I felt the ground shake, and suddenly a series of shadows detached themselves from the corners of the barn and began to form, a swirling mass, indistinct yet familiar. I stepped back, my heart pounding loudly in my ears. The shadows began to take shape, a distorted image of something that resembled me. My breath hitched, and I realized it was not a mere reflection but a tangled version of all my fears, my failures, the times I felt powerless, moments of loneliness. That's not me, I shouted, trembling, but the shadow continued to morph, unveiling memories I wished I could forget. My heart raced faster, and I could feel anger rising within me. How was I supposed to confront this terrifying amalgamation? Face me, the figure commanded, its voice resonating like thunder. The shadows shifted, closing in. I took a deep breath, my resolve hardening. I couldn't let this entity swallow me whole. Just as I was about to step forward, everything lurched again. A cracking, splintering sound filled the air. My choice hung heavy in the air, and I realized I was running out of time. Stand down, I yelled, making my voice firm. I won't let you control me. Then a new light flashed, blindingly bright, slicing through the darkness as the shadows paused momentarily. You choose to confront. I didn't know it was coming, but the light burst forth, a thin thread of hope breaking through the chaos. Then, just as quickly as it arrived, it flickered and faded, leaving me face to face with my shadow once more. I had to act, and I had to act now. The tension in the air was electric, and I could sense the shadows closing in again. Here goes nothing, I whispered to myself, bracing for the confrontation ahead. My feet felt glued to the ground. The shadow loomed larger before me, the distorted shape flickering like a flame in the wind. I could barely distinguish it from the dark surrounding it. My heart thundered in my chest, but I couldn't let that stop me now. I squared my shoulders and took a shaky step forward. What do you want from me? I shouted, hoping to wield some power over this cloud of fears. The words felt weak, but they were all I had. The shadow twisted, mocking me. You know what lies within. Another surge of energy rippled through the barn. The floorboards creaked ominously beneath me. "Stop!" I yelled, raising my hands as if I could physically push it back. "You're not real. You can't control me." I needed to believe that. I had to believe that confronting this version of myself wouldn't consume me. Suddenly, a chill crept through the air, snaking around me. A whisper slipped through the silence, low but clear. "You hide in the light but shun the darkness. Face it." I froze, confused. Hadn't I already chosen to face my fear? Wasn't that enough? Anxiety gnawed at my insides, mixing with the anger that had buoyed my courage moments before. As if sensing my hesitation, the shadow lunged forward, distorting its shape. It reached out with tendrils of darkness, closing the distance between us. Reflexively, I stumbled back, the grounding force of the barn slipping away. "Face it!" The voice grew louder, resonating through my bones. In that moment, the memory of my failures flashed through my mind, a wave of regret and pain. All the moments I felt I had faltered, all the people I lost along the way. It all came crashing back, intensifying the horror of the encounter. But amid that storm of emotions, a thought sparked. Maybe those memories weren't about failure. Maybe they were about growth. They were parts of me, not chains to hold me down. With new resolve, I stepped forward. "You don't scare me," I shouted, feeling the words transform into a shield against the encroaching shadow. "You're just a part of me. You won't take control." The shadow hesitated, a flicker of uncertainty passing through it. The glow from the book pulsed beside me, illuminating the space again. It felt as though the barn itself was watching, waiting. "Bring it!" I dared, anger and defiance fueling me. The darkness shuddered, and in that moment I recognized the figure standing before me. It was me, a version of myself that needed healing, not hostility. But then the ground trembled again. A deafening roar filled the barn as the shadows writhed, morphing into something darker, more foreboding. "No!" I cried out as the darkness raged, shifting into something grotesque and monstrous. I couldn't let it take over. Not now. That's when I saw it. A gleam of silver reflecting the golden light from the book. It was a small dagger nestled in the floorboards beneath the rising shadows. Hope surged. Maybe that's the answer, I thought, lunging toward it, despite the chaos around me. Grabbing the dagger felt like seizing a lifeline in the tempest. I turned back, breathing heavily, the dagger raised high. "I'm not afraid of my shadow any longer," I shouted at the darkness, ready for whatever it would throw at me next. I felt a flicker of triumph light up within me, but I knew the fight was far from over. Now, I had to figure out how to wield that power. The darkness roared in response, more furious than ever. The darkness howled. Tendrils twisted and curled, searching for a point of weakness. My grip tightened around the dagger. I had to show it I wasn't just afraid. I was furious. "Get back!" I yelled as I stepped forward. The dagger felt warm in my hand, pulsing gently in time with the book's light. Maybe there was more to this blade than I realized. Maybe it represented something I needed to unlock. The grotesque shape lunged at me, its form shifting, clamoring for control. I held the dagger out before me, and an unexpected boost of energy surged through me. It felt like a fire igniting in my veins, illuminating my fear. The shadow recoiled as if I had stabbed it with pure light. "What are you?" it screeched, almost sounding human. "I'm not your prisoner," I shouted back, feeling more confident with every word. The dagger drew me forward, urging me to confront the shadow head-on. "You're not my failure. You're a part of me I'm ready to face. You can't frighten me any longer." With that, I lunged forward, aiming not to attack but to connect. Something shifted in the air. The dagger glimmered more intensely as I closed the gap between us. Just a moment before contact, the ground shook violently beneath me. I stumbled but steadied myself, steeling my resolve. The dagger was my key. I could feel it, not just as a weapon but as a bridge to a deeper understanding. I snarled as the shadows closed in. "You think you can overpower me? I'm more than my mistakes." Suddenly, the shadow twisted, forming faces, not just my own, but those of familiar people I'd lost. They shifted, pleading through the layers of darkness. "Help us," their voices echoed, merging with my own jumble of fear and anger. It was overwhelming. "No! I won't let you manipulate me!" I pierced through the chaos. The dagger's light radiated, illuminating the barn with fierce brilliance. It felt as if it was absorbing the very essence of my fears and transforming that energy into strength. The monstrous shape writhed, losing its grip. I pressed forward, recognizing that the softer human shapes within it were parts of my past I had hidden away. They weren't just failures. They were lessons, wounds that taught me to grow. I plunged the dagger forward into the swirling mass of darkness. But just as it made contact, the ground beneath me shattered. I was sucked into a void, the air closing in on me, darkness swallowing the light. "No, not like this," I cried out, panic surging. Then, through the suffocating dark, I saw a sliver of light above. It flickered like a candle, beckoning me back. I tensed, gripping the dagger tighter as I kicked my legs, pushing against whatever was trying to drag me down. If I could just reach that light. An instant later I broke through the surface, gasping for breath. My heart raced, but I was back in the barn, the dagger still lit in my hands. The shadow had pulled back, as if stunned. It gestured toward the corners of the barn, revealing pockets of darkness clinging tightly. I realized there was more to confront than I thought. What now? I whispered to myself, looking at the shadow now lurking at the edges, waiting. But in that moment of uncertainty, I resolved to face whatever came next. Because if there was one thing I knew now, it was that I wasn't finished yet. And the light, however flickering, was mine to wield. As I prepared for what lay ahead, a strange sound echoed through the barn, a clucking growing more distinct. I turned to see a rooster, out of place and oddly serene, strutting into view. What was it doing here? The tension shifted. This was no ordinary night. The rooster strutted confidently across the barn floor, its feathers gleaming under the dagger's light. I blinked, momentarily caught off guard. Why was it here? This wasn't a place for livestock, let alone a solitary bird. It seemed almost too calm, a stark contrast to the chaos that had just unfolded. I took a cautious step toward it. "Where did you come from?" I asked, my voice shaky. The bird paused and cocked its head, as if it had understood me. There was a glimmer of something in those beady eyes. I wondered if perhaps, in some strange way, it was there to guide me. Just then, the shadow stirred again. It crept slowly toward me, its form flickering like a candle's flame in the wind. I turned back to the rooster, finding strength in its steady presence. "Stay close," I murmured, holding the dagger higher. With the dagger in one hand and the other extended toward the bird, I felt the connection intensify. I felt the energies of the barn shift again, heavier this time. The rooster stepped beside me, seemingly unbothered. It clucked, breaking the silence, and I could have sworn it sounded almost encouraging. Suddenly, the surrounding darkness surged, trying to consume us both. I gritted my teeth and steadied myself. "You won't take me again," I yelled at the shadow, forcing my will into the dagger. The light flared, and the barn glowed vibrantly, pushing the darkness back. But the shadows retaliated, morphing, lashing out with sharp tendrils. One snagged the rooster's foot. Panic surged through me. "No, let it go." I lunged instinctively. The dagger's energy responded to my fear, and the blade hummed with a newfound intensity. I slashed at the darkness, feeling the connection between me and the rooster strengthen. It squawked loudly, the sound piercing through the tension. The tendril recoiled, releasing its grip. I breathed a sigh of relief, but knew the fight was far from over. "What do you want from me?" I shouted into the void. The shadow paused, shapes within it flickering. It felt like a mirror showing me the chaos that was once my life. Time spent hiding from fears, obsessing over failures. I thought I'd faced those demons, but clearly they were still lingering. Then, the rooster let out another forceful cluck, pulling my gaze back to it. The air shifted again, and I felt warmth radiating from the dagger, resonating with the bird's cries. Maybe it was more than a mere bystander. Maybe it was a symbol of hope, a reminder that clarity was possible amidst confusion. Determination surged through me with renewed strength. "Help me then," I commanded, thrusting the dagger toward the shadow once more. "We fight together." The light erupted, pushing back against the tide of darkness. The rooster, emboldened by the surge of energy, flapped its wings and crowed defiantly. Its spirit harmonized with my own, and together we illuminated the barn like a beacon. But just as the shadow began to retreat, an unsettling rumble echoed. The barn creaked and groaned as if it were coming alive, shifting beneath our feet. I glanced at the rooster, and for a fleeting moment, a flicker of understanding passed between us. Then, everything went dark again. I felt the floor vanish from beneath me, and I was falling into shadow, the dagger barely flickering in my grasp. Somewhere above, the rooster's silhouette danced in the dimness, and I could hear it still calling my name. But then, there was silence. I landed hard, gasping as the breath was knocked from my lungs. The air was thick and cold, a stark contrast to the warmth I had felt moments before. I blinked, trying to adjust to the gloom surrounding me. My heart raced. Where was I? I couldn't see a thing, but I felt the dagger still clutched in my hand. I lifted it cautiously, letting its faint glow illuminate my immediate surroundings. I was in what looked like an underground chamber, old wooden beams holding up a ceiling that seemed to stretch on forever into darkness. "Rooster," I called, my voice echoing into the void. Silence lingered, heavy and unsettling. I felt a rush of panic. What if it had been taken from me? I steadied my breath. I couldn't let fear win again. Just then, a faint clucking broke through the darkness. My heart leaped. "Is that you?" I took a step forward, straining to see where the sound came from. The dagger flickered, casting twisted shadows along the walls. "Come on, where are you?" I said, urgency creeping into my voice. I felt the energy of the dagger pulse, almost as if it were drawing me closer to something. And then I saw it, a dim outline against the far wall. The rooster stood proud, its feathers still gleaming despite the lack of light. Relief washed over me. "You're okay." I rushed toward it. As I got closer, I realized something wasn't right. The rooster stared at a dark corner of the chamber, its body tense, wings slightly raised. I followed its gaze, and my breath hitched. From the shadows, two glowing eyes peered back at me. They were the same flickering shape as the shadow I had battled in the barn, but this felt different, more solid and sinister. The darkness rippled, and I could swear it was forming into a figure. "Stay close," I urged the rooster as I positioned myself between it and the encroaching darkness. The tendrils coiled outward, testing the air like serpents. I tightened my grip on the dagger, its pulse steadying my resolve. The figure stepped forward, revealing a warped face. There was pain etched into its features, a blend of anger and sorrow. "You thought you could escape me," it hissed. My breath came quicker. "What do you want?" I shouted. "You won't take me." Determination surged through me, bolstered by the rooster beside me. I realized that we were connected, not just by the fight, but by the shared purpose that thrummed in the air. The figure laughed, a cold sound that cut through the tension. "You cannot outrun your past," it sneered. The ground beneath me shook, echoing with a distant memory of all I had faced. But then the rooster let out a loud cluck, startling the shadow. I felt the energy of the dagger amplify, feeding off my newfound resolve. I bowed my head and charged forward, the blade at the ready. "We fight together," I yelled, unleashing a surge of light. The glow brightened the chamber, pushing back at the shadow. It recoiled, but I could see it gathering strength. I needed to act fast. That's when I noticed something glimmering beside the roaring shadow. An object, half buried beneath the dirt. I hesitated. Could it hold the key to my escape? But before I could decide, a tendril lashed out, slicing through the air with menacing speed. The urgency shot through me. I had to reach that object, now. My heart thundered in my chest as I lunged for the glimmering object, the dagger still held high. The shadow unleashed another howl, and its tendrils lashed out like angry serpents, but I dodged them, propelled by sheer desperation. My fingers grazed the object, and I yanked it free from the soil. It was a key, ancient and rusted, adorned with intricate engravings that pulsed gently with energy. The moment I grasped it, warmth surged through me, complementing the flickering glow of the dagger. I glanced back at the rooster, its beady eyes locked onto mine, offering silent encouragement. "Together!" I shouted, holding the key and dagger close to my heart. The shadow attacked again, more ferociously this time. I ducked just in time, feeling the sharp whoosh of a tendril pass inches from my face. I had to confront it. I took a deep breath, my mind racing with clarity as I understood that this was not just about fighting, it was about choosing to reclaim the parts of me I thought I had lost. "Enough of this," I yelled. "I won't let you control me any longer." With one swift motion, I drove the dagger toward the shadow. The blade sparked brightly as it made contact, illuminating the chamber. The roar of the shadow reverberated through the walls, but I pressed on, plunging the key into the dark mass that writhed before me. The moment the key touched the shadow, everything stilled. A deep, resonating silence enveloped the chamber, and I felt the energy, my energy, intertwine with the key and the shadow. I could hear whispers, soft and urgent, like fragments of memories scattered through time. "Face it," the voice urged, and I realized it was mine, both strong and vulnerable. In that moment, I understood that I had to confront not just the remnants of my past, but my very own fears. I thought of the failures, the loneliness, the moments that had haunted me, the ones I had tried to bury deep within. "Shadows are a part of light," I declared, my voice steady and firm. "I must confront you to move forward. You are not my enemy. You are my lesson." As I spoke those words, a powerful surge erupted from the key, intertwining with the light of the dagger. The shadow shrieked, a chilling sound that reverberated against the walls, pulling back in sudden uncertainty. The rooster let out an encouraging crow, its voice breaking through the remnants of fear that still lingered. I felt a wave of clarity sweeping over me, connecting every piece of my past in an embrace of understanding. "No more shackles," I shouted. "I claim the light within." The energy from the dagger and key fused, radiating outward until it engulfed the chamber in blinding brilliance. I could feel the weight of my failures, my fears melting away, transforming into lessons rather than chains. "Help me break the darkness," I said to the rooster. It responded with strong flaps of its wings, joining in the fight with a surge of energy, and together we forced back the shadow with unwavering determination. Then, in one final push, I drove the dagger and key deeper into the dark mass. An explosion of light burst forth, blinding all my senses. I felt weightless, as if I was no longer just in the chamber, but soaring through the air, surrounded by warmth and acceptance. When the light finally dimmed, I found myself back in the barn, kneeling on the old wooden floor. The rooster stood proudly beside me, its feathers still glimmering, but the shadow was nowhere to be found. The air felt different now, lighter, almost like a promise of new beginnings. "Did we win?" I whispered to the rooster, still in awe of what had just transpired. The bird clucked softly in response, almost as if it understood, and I couldn't help but grin. I took a moment to catch my breath, trying to grasp the enormity of what had occurred. My struggle had not simply pushed back the darkness, it had transformed my fear into strength. Still, a lingering sense of uncertainty hung in the air. What had truly happened to the shadow? Was this final victory genuine, or merely a temporary reprieve? I felt an itch of doubt, but brushed it away, knowing I had faced some of my deepest fears. As I stood up, I hesitated at the barn door. Part of me wanted to leave this place behind for good, but another part yearned to stay. I had discovered more than I had anticipated, walked through darkness, and returned with the light. And as I stepped outside, the sun began to rise on the horizon, casting a golden glow over the fields. I took a deep breath, feeling the warmth of the new day embrace me. A reminder, life continued onward. I moved to a different city after that, embracing the beauty of new beginnings. But I still think about that farm sometimes. I wonder if the rooster is still there, how many stories it has witnessed, and if others might one day uncover the truth hidden within that shadow. The mystery remains, still lingering like a breath of wind, a reminder that we all have shadows we must learn to face.